They thought she was just another quiet transfer student, until she dropped their star athlete with a single move. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Zara Williams stood at the entrance of Jefferson High School, taking a deep breath as students brushed past her. This was her third school this year, courtesy of her father's military transfers. At 16, she had perfected the art of being the new girl, observe carefully, speak little, and never show fear. Her simple hoodie and jeans were intentionally unremarkable, her curly hair pulled back in a practical bun. She wanted to blend in, at least for now. Just another school, she whispered to herself, gripping her schedule tighter. What she didn't mention was the 5 years of Muay Thai and 3 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that had followed her from base to base. Training that had begun as father-daughter bonding had evolved into serious competition-level skill. Not that anyone here needed to know that. The hallways were a maze of noise and chaos. Zara navigated them quietly, noting the usual high school ecosystem at work, the athletes, the academics, the artsy crowd. And then there were the predators, the ones whose eyes lingered too long on new targets. She'd spotted them within minutes. 3 girls stationed by the lockers, led by a tall blonde whose smile never reached her eyes. Brianna Jenkins and her followers, she would later learn. Mr. Collins, her new English teacher, made her introduce herself to the class. Zara Williams. I'm from everywhere and nowhere. A few chuckles, mostly blank stares. She took a seat in the back, immediately opening her notebook. Stay quiet, stay invisible. Her usual strategy for the first few weeks. By lunch, Zara had made exactly 0 friends and received exactly 7 curious stares. The cafeteria presented its usual challenge, where to sit when you know no one. She chose an empty table near the window, unpacking her lunch methodically. Well, look who thinks she owns prime real estate now. The voice came from behind her, saccharine sweet with underlying venom. Brianna Jenkins stood there, flanked by her 2 friends, all wearing identical smirks. This is our table. Has been for 2 years. Zara looked around the half-empty cafeteria. Plenty of other tables. Did she just talk back? The shorter girl to Brianna's right looked almost delighted at the prospect of conflict. Brianna's perfectly manicured hand slammed down on Zara's lunch tray, sending her water bottle toppling. Maybe they do things differently wherever you're from, but here you need to learn your place. Zara slowly righted her water bottle, her movements deliberate. I'm just trying to eat lunch. You can eat in the bathroom for all I care, Brianna snapped. This table isn't for charity cases. Zara stood up, gathering her things without a word. Pick your battles, her father always said. High school politics weren't worth the drama. She could feel their eyes on her back as she walked away, their laughter like tiny needles. 3 days passed in much the same way. Brianna and her crew had apparently decided that Zara was their new favorite target. A shove in the hallway here, a knocked-over book there. Words like scholarship case and charity project followed her between classes. Zara remained silent, but she was no pushover. Each night she maintained her training regimen, push-ups, core work, shadow boxing in her bedroom. The discipline centered her, reminded her who she was beneath the new girl identity she wore like an ill-fitting uniform. On Thursday, things escalated. Zara was changing after gym class when Brianna cornered her by the lockers. Heard you've been talking about me, Brianna said, her voice carrying so the other girls could hear. Zara zipped up her hoodie. I haven't said anything about you. Calling me a stuck-up bitch to Jessica in chemistry? Really mature. Zara had never even spoken to anyone named Jessica. That's not true. Brianna stepped closer. Are you calling me a liar? With a swift motion, she knocked Zara's backpack off the bench, spilling its contents across the locker room floor. The room went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Zara knelt down to gather her things, her jaw tight with controlled anger. Brianna's foot came down on her history notebook. "What's wrong? Nothing to say now?" Brianna taunted. Zara stood up slowly, her eyes level with Brianna's. "Move your foot." Something in her tone made Brianna hesitate, but only for a second. "Make me." Friday brought rain, and with it, the final straw. Zara was walking toward the bus loop when she heard them behind her. Brianna and 4 others this time, including 2 boys from the basketball team. Safety in numbers for what they had planned. "Hey, charity case, wait up!" Brianna called. Zara kept walking, her boots splashing through puddles. The parking lot was nearly empty. Most students had already left for the day. A hand grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around. One of the basketball players, Tyler, stood there grinning. "Don't you know it's rude to ignore people?" "I need to catch my bus," Zara said evenly. Brianna stepped forward. "Your bus can wait. We need to have a chat about respect." "Respect goes both ways," Zara replied, adjusting her backpack strap. Oh my God, is she serious right now? The shorter girl, Ashley, looked at the others incredulously. Does she know who she's talking to? Tyler moved into Zara's space. Brianna runs this school. The sooner you figure that out, the easier your life will be. Zara took a step back, calculating distances, angles, escape routes. I don't want any trouble. Should have thought about that before you came here, Brianna said, nodding to Tyler. With a quick motion, Tyler grabbed Zara's backpack and tossed it to the second basketball player, who promptly dumped its contents into a large puddle. The line had been crossed. In that moment, Zara Williams disappeared, and in her place stood the girl who had won 3 junior MMA tournaments before her 15th birthday. Pick it up, Zara said, her voice dangerously quiet. Laughter erupted from the group. Or what? Tyler challenged, shoving her shoulder. The movement was so fast that most of them didn't even see it. Zara sidestepped, caught Tyler's extended arm, and used his own momentum to send him face first into the wet pavement. He lay there stunned as she stepped back into a fighting stance, hands relaxed, but ready. What the hell? The second boy lunged. At her, Zara pivoted, her elbow connecting with his solar plexus before sweeping his legs from under him. He joined Tyler on the ground, gasping for air. Brianna and her girlfriend stood frozen, eyes wide with shock. You're crazy, Ashley shrieked. No, Zara replied calmly. I'm just done being your target. Brianna, recovering from her surprise, rushed forward with a wild swing. Zara blocked it easily, locking Brianna's arm and bringing her to her knees with precise pressure. Not enough to hurt seriously, just enough to control. My father taught me that fighting is always the last resort, Zara said, looking down at Brianna. But when it's necessary, you finish it quickly. She released Brianna, who scrambled backward, fear replacing the usual arrogance in her eyes. Stay away from me, Zara warned, collecting her soaked belongings. All of you. News traveled fast at Jefferson High. By Monday morning, the story had transformed into legend, embellished with each retelling. Some said she'd knocked out 5 guys. Others claimed she was a secret UFC fighter. The truth was somewhere in between. But the effect was the same. People kept their distance, equal parts wary and impressed. Zara sat alone at lunch, as usual, when a girl from her math class approached cautiously. Can I sit here? The girl, Melissa, asked. Zara nodded, making space. I don't actually bite, you know. Melissa laughed nervously. That's not what I heard. She set down her tray. For what it's worth, Brianna and her friends have been making people miserable for years. No one's ever stood up to them like that. I didn't want to fight, Zara said quietly, but I won't be bullied either. More students joined their table throughout the week, not because they feared her, but because they respected her boundary setting. Even some teachers seemed to look at her differently, especially Coach Rivera, who approached her after gym class. You've had training, she observed. Real training, not just street fighting. Zara nodded cautiously. Our girls' self-defense program could use an assistant instructor, Coach Rivera continued. Interested? For the first time since arriving at Jefferson, Zara smiled. Very. The weeks following the parking lot confrontation brought a noticeable shift to the atmosphere at Jefferson High. Initially, whispers followed Zara through the hallways, some admiring, others cautious. Students who had never acknowledged her existence now offered small nods of recognition as she passed by. The transformation wasn't about fear. It was about respect. Zara hadn't fought to climb the social hierarchy. She had fought to dismantle the very notion that such a hierarchy should dictate her worth. This subtle distinction made all the difference in how the school now perceived her. Mornings at Jefferson took on a different quality for Zara. She no longer entered the building with her guard fully raised, shoulders tense in anticipation of confrontation. Instead, she walked with the same quiet confidence she'd always possessed, but now it was recognized rather than targeted. Even the teachers seemed to view her through a new lens, not as a troublemaker who had engaged in a fight, but as a student who had defended herself with remarkable restraint and discipline. Principal Hernandez had called her into his office the Monday after the incident, and rather than delivering the expected suspension, he had listened to her side of the story with genuine interest. Violence is never our preferred solution at Jefferson, he had told her, his fingers forming a steeple on his desk. But self-defense is another matter entirely. Coach Rivera tells me you showed considerable restraint. His eyes had studied her carefully. That kind of control doesn't come naturally to most teenagers, or adults, for that matter. Zara had simply nodded, not feeling the need to elaborate on years of her father drilling into her the responsibility that came with her training. The conversation had ended not with punishment, but with a warning to come to faculty if she encountered similar situations in the future. Both knew it was unlikely such a situation would arise again. Word traveled fast in high school ecosystems. The most dramatic change came in the form of Coach Rivera's invitation. What had begun as a casual offer to help with the girls' self-defense program had evolved into a structured position. Twice a week after school, Zara now stood before a group of 15 girls, demonstrating basic escape techniques and stance work. The attendance had tripled since she'd started assisting. There was something powerful about learning from a peer who had actually applied these techniques in real life, not just in controlled settings. Remember, the goal isn't to win a fight, Zara explained to the class one Tuesday afternoon as they practiced breaking out of wrist grabs. It's to create enough space and time to get away from danger. Your safety is always the priority. Among the attentive faces, Melissa, now a friend rather than just an acquaintance, nodded enthusiastically. Several freshman girls who had previously been too intimidated to join the program now formed a dedicated front row. But perhaps most surprising was the figure standing near the back of the gym, attempting to blend into the wall despite her distinctive blonde hair, Brianna Jenkins. Their hallway encounters had evolved from tense avoidance to neutral acknowledgement. Neither girl sought the other out, but the hostility had dissolved into something resembling mutual respect. Zara had noticed Brianna observing the self-defense classes from afar several times before finally gathering the courage to join the previous week. Today marked her second session, her designer athletic wear standing out among the practical gym clothes of the other participants. After class, as the girls filed out toward the locker rooms, Brianna lingered behind, adjusting the laces on her shoes with uncharacteristic meticulousness. "Your form is improving," Zara offered, gathering the practice pads. "Especially your stance." Brianna looked up, momentarily surprised by the direct address. "Thanks. I've been practicing at home a little." She hesitated, then added, "My mom bought me a punching bag last weekend. Said she'd never seen me so interested in any kind of physical activity before." The revelation hung between them, an unexpected bridge across what had once seemed an uncrossable divide. Zara nodded, understanding the significance of what wasn't being said. Proper technique prevents injury. I could show you how to wrap your hands properly sometime. A month ago, such an offer would have been unthinkable. Now it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The social ecosystem of Jefferson High was realigning itself, creating space for new possibilities. Brianna's initial transformation wasn't about suddenly becoming kind or abandoning her position in the school's social structure. It was subtler than that, a gradual softening of edges, a questioning of habits that had gone unexamined for years. She still sat with her usual group at lunch, still commanded attention when she walked down the hallway. But the aggressive targeting of others had ceased, not just toward Zara, but toward everyone. Whether this change stemmed from fear, respect, or genuine introspection remained unclear, but the effect rippled throughout the school regardless. One particularly revealing moment came during third-period chemistry, which Zara shared with Ashley, one of Brianna's closest followers. A new student, a nervous boy with thick glasses and a heavy accent, had been assigned to Ashley's lab table. In the past, this would have been prime territory for quiet torment. Instead, to everyone's surprise, including her own, Ashley had simply helped him find the right page in the textbook and continued with her work. Later, Zara overheard her telling another student, "It's just exhausting being mean all the time, you know? Like, what's even the point?" This wasn't to say that Jefferson High had transformed into a utopia of teenage harmony. Other social dynamics continued unchanged. The usual dramas of relationships, academic pressure, and club politics still dominated hallway conversations. But the specific brand of targeted intimidation that had been Brianna's specialty had noticeably diminished. For Zara, this period marked the first time she had allowed herself to put down roots at a new school, despite knowing her family would relocate again in just a few months. She began accepting invitations to study groups, contributed to class discussions rather than observing silently, and even agreed to help with sets for the spring musical, though she would be gone before opening night. The sense of impermanence that had always kept her socially distant now felt less like a protective shield and more like an unnecessary barrier. Her father noticed the change in her during their evening training sessions in the garage they had, converted into a modest home gym. "You seem more present," he observed one night as they cooled down. "Less like you're just passing through." Zara stretched her shoulders, considering his words. "I guess I realized I don't have to choose between connecting with people and being ready to leave." Colonel Williams nodded, the wisdom in his daughter's words not lost on him. "That's a lesson many adults never learn, Zara. Being prepared for change doesn't mean you can't fully engage with the present." The most significant moment of this new equilibrium came unexpectedly, 3 weeks after the parking lot incident. Zara entered the girls' bathroom between classes to find Brianna alone at the sink, carefully reapplying lip gloss in the mirror. Their eyes met in the reflection, and for a moment, the old tension threatened to resurface. Then Brianna placed her makeup back in her purse and turned to face Zara directly. "I wasn't going to really hurt you, you know," she said, her tone defensive yet carrying an undercurrent of something like regret. The statement was as close to an apology as her pride would allow. Zara washed her hands methodically, processing this unexpected opening. "I know," she replied evenly. "That's why I didn't hurt you either." The acknowledgement hung between them, mutual recognition that both had exercised restraint in their own ways. Despite the power imbalance of the confrontation, both had emerged with their dignity intact, if altered. "My dad's getting transferred again in 3 months," Zara continued, drying her hands on a paper towel. "I'll be gone by spring. But while I'm here, I just want to learn, train, and maybe make a few friends. That's it." This simple declaration of intention, neither aggressive nor submissive, seemed to reset something fundamental between them. Brianna nodded slowly, absorbing the information. Then, with uncharacteristic hesitancy, "The self-defense classes you're helping with, are they any good?" "They could be," Zara responded, careful not to overpromise. "Why? Thinking of joining?" Maybe. The shrug that followed was perhaps the first genuine, unperformed gesture Zara had seen from Brianna. For once, there was no audience to impress, no image to maintain, just two girls having an honest conversation in the unlikely privacy of the school bathroom. That conversation marked the beginning of a carefully maintained truce that gradually evolved into something resembling mutual respect. Brianna began attending the self-defense classes regularly, initially keeping to herself, but eventually engaging with other participants. Coach Rivera noticed the change, commenting to Zara after one particularly productive session, "Whatever. You did, it worked. I've never seen Brianna Jenkins willingly take instruction from anyone." Zara had simply smiled. Sometimes people just need the right opportunity to be different. As March approached, bringing with it the inevitable preparations for another move, Zara found herself in the unusual position of actually feeling reluctant to leave. Jefferson High had transformed from just another temporary stop to a place where she had made a genuine impact. The self-defense program was thriving, with Coach Rivera discussing plans to expand it into a full elective course the following year. Melissa and a growing circle of friends had planned a goodbye gathering at the local pizza place. Even some of the teachers had expressed regret at losing her from their classes. Most surprising was the conversation she overheard between Brianna and Coach Rivera after school one day, as Zara was putting away equipment in the gym storage room. "I was thinking," Brianna's voice carried from the coach's office, uncharacteristically uncertain. "When Zara leaves, maybe I could help continue some of the techniques she's been teaching. I've been practicing a lot, and I could at least help demonstrate the basics while you find another assistant." Coach Rivera's response was measured but encouraging. "That's quite a commitment, Brianna. Why the interest?" A pause, then, "I guess I never realized how it feels to be good at something that actually helps people. It's different." From her hidden position, Zara smiled to herself. This, more than anything, represented the new equilibrium that had established itself at Jefferson High. Not a complete transformation of character or an artificial friendship forced by circumstance, but the subtle recalibration that occurs when people see new possibilities in themselves and others. As she prepared for her final weeks at Jefferson, Zara reflected on her father's words from years ago when she'd first started training. "The strongest fighters are the ones who know when not to fight at all." She hadn't fully understood it then, interpreting it only as tactical wisdom about conserving energy and choosing battles. Now, watching Brianna approach Coach Rivera after school, asking about continuing the self-defense program after Zara's departure, she finally grasped the deeper truth. True strength wasn't just about defending yourself, it was about creating spaces where defense became unnecessary, where people could grow beyond the roles they had trapped themselves in. For the first time, Zara felt she was leaving something meaningful behind at a school, not just memories or academic achievements, but a tangible change in the environment itself. The hierarchy hadn't been destroyed. That wasn't how human social groups worked. But it had been questioned, examined, and subtly reshaped into something that allowed more freedom for everyone involved. And that, she decided as she watched Brianna demonstrate a perfect stance to a freshman girl, was worth the temporary pain of another goodbye.